Well, hello, I'm David Gross with Conde Systems, and it is my pleasure to be with Jimmy Lamb of Sawgrass today for this webinar, which I think is a quite interesting topic, tips for home-based business. And Jimmy, I like your background here. That's really good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, David. Looking forward to another great session here. A lot of good information for people.
Well, as usual, you know how it works, folks out there. We will be recording this and placing it on Conde TV afterwards. You're going to be in a mute mode, but you can submit questions for us to answer during the webinar for ones that are appropriate, and then others we would answer at the end of it. And if something deserves a little bit longer conversation, we can get back to you after the webinar. I think, Jimmy, I want to award some prizes at the end. So okay. We've got a very nice group with us here, and we hope this will be of value. I guess one of these days we ought to do some poll questions, Jimmy, just to see how many of the folks out there already have, you know, the beginnings of a home business, or
right.
How many people are considering, how many people are sublimating. So maybe drop us a little comment there to let us know your situation. We would love to know. So Jimmy, let's get started.
Okay, David, then we will get started. And our focus, of course, is home-based operations. And I think David kind of alluded to it, that that's exactly where I got started. So I know all about what it is to start in the home, work from the home, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And also you'll get some things in here too that are really good for if you're a newbie, okay? Because just because you work in your house doesn't mean you just started. I mean, we had technically worked in our house for, well, in our property, I should say, because it grew. But, you know, we started in the house and built a building out behind our house that we moved the business into. So we spent about our first, I don't know, 12 years or so working in a home-based operation. So, but definitely for any of you that are new, I hope you're going to walk away with some really good information as well. And those of you who are already there working in your house, we got a lot of good information for you too. So anyway, so in the world of home business, SCORE, which is a division of the Small Business Administration, they estimate about 30 million businesses in the United States, and of that, 52% of them are home-based. So you're definitely not alone. You may be alone in your house, but you're not alone in the business world of working from home. So we got pros and cons. Obviously, working from home, low rent, free parking, a very short commute. I used to always joke about that. Got to go commute to the office, go downstairs. You know, low-cost utilities, flexible work hours, and no need for costly signage. And you can probably extend that list out on a whole lot more, because there's just a lot of nice things about working from home, for sure. But there's also some negatives, we hate to say, but there are. You may have zoning problems. You're invisible to walk-ins, and that's probably one of the top ones, is you're just invisible. As far as physically, you're invisible. Now, if you have good social media, promotions, marketing, etc., you can get your name out there. But if you're looking for walk-in business, for example, you're probably not going to get a lot at home, and sometimes that's better that way. One of the problems that I ran into, and you may have run into this too for all those who are already in home business, is your friends don't think that you work. You know, your friends are always like, oh yeah, you left your job, you don't work anymore. So, oh yes, we do. You know, and then your customers think the opposite. They think you work 24/7, you know, and that they can just show up anytime they want. Okay. And this is all coming from real experience, let me tell you.
Yeah, one of the things, Jimmy, that I have, when I talk to people that have businesses, I always ask them what's their pros and cons. One of them is an interesting one, and that is discipline. So yes. If you're working from home, you've got to build up that habit of discipline of, you know, getting your business going, taking care of your emails, your calls, your whatever, Facebook, and just, you know, not be, I guess, the ADD pulled in every direction to go, you know, watch an hour of TV or whatever, but really to manage and work your business, set your schedule, the blogs you're going to do, whatever way you're promoting your products, and most importantly, I tell everybody, have the discipline to make samples and make those sales calls.
Yeah, you got to be very disciplined in the home environment because there are so many distractions. And you know what? For some people, it works great. It's always worked great for me. But there are other people that just don't do it as well, So that's great advice, David, about the discipline. But a couple of things I want to touch on here real quick is you also have to still have your home life, your family life kind of thing. And I'm serious about customers who think you work 24/7. When we were working out of our house, that particular house happened to be on a lake. And, I'd be out swimming with the kids on a Saturday afternoon, and here comes somebody walking out on my dock, wanting to talk to me about, some work. And I'm like, I'm out here with my family, and of course, sometimes, we don't necessarily want to get out of the water in a bathing suit in front of our customer, on top of that. But, you also have to kind of work your customers to say, listen, I have legitimate hours. And, so that they hopefully will respect those boundaries. So those are things you have to think about for sure. The other one I'm going to mention real quick here is that corporations sometimes don't think you're legitimate. And that's just silly, but I've run into it. And, as I was building my business, I was the largest product decorator for, a couple of 100 miles. And a lot of equipment. In fact, I got to the point I'm working 2 shifts a day with employees in a building behind my house. Okay. And I remember one time we bid on a pretty big contract with a large corporation, and we lost it at the last minute because they found out we were home-based. And they said, listen, we just don't deal with home-based businesses because we find that a lot of them can't handle our needs. Well, here's the funny part, okay? So they went to a smaller business that was in a storefront with the same project, and those people wanted to bid on it. So they called me because I did a lot of their contract work. So I gave that smaller business client of mine the same price I gave to that big corporation. So that other company marked it up and got the job because they were storefront. I still made the same amount of money, so I ultimately got the job anyway. But, I mean, that's sometimes the craziness you run into. So just some of that real life
experience. I'll tell you this. We track our shipments, and we can tell if they're going to a residential versus commercial. And certainly every day the number of residential shipments are going up.
Yes.
It's a staggering number of shipments every day that are going to residents, and it's just, I think it's just a symptom of the architecture of our economy now and the opportunities that exist for home businesses.
Yeah, it is, and there is a big turnaround in those, assumptions that we used to see. Because, I started my business, more than a few years ago. We'll leave it at that. One of the cool things about working at home, especially if you're doing sublimation. If you're doing sublimation, you don't necessarily need a lot of space to get things started. We're going to show you some pictures a little bit later of some home-based operations, and there's some pretty impressive looking operations out there. A lot of people, they start in a spare bedroom, a basement, or a garage, but there's more things to think about than just finding the space too. You obviously have to have power, but you also got to think about the environment of that workspace, which can play an impact on it. So let's start though and talk about electrical power for just a minute. We don't tend to think about it a lot when we're starting a business. Oh, we're just going to plug in our computer over here. We're going to plug in our heat press there. But a heat press can draw a lot of power. And in a home, you're not really aware of which electrical circuits in the wall are feeding other circuits in other rooms. And this was one of the things that we found kind of early, because it turned out that our original location with the wall outlet there in the garage area was going to the same circuit as the closest bathroom. And so if you had a heat press running and one of my daughters went to blow dry her hair, and she turned on that blow dryer, was sucked about 12 amps of power, it tripped off the whole circuit. And, so we were finding interesting little things like that going along.
One of the recommendations I make for everybody, I think it's the most handy accessory you could ever buy, is one of those label makers. I have a brother, I think they call them a P-Touch.
Yeah, I have
you
one
can
of those
use
too.
them for folders. You can label your storage, all your storage in your business. But one of the first things you want to do is label your outlets according to what breaker they go to, so that you'll know, if you want to try to make it work, how to divide up your power without flipping a breaker. For instance, you're not going to run a heat press and a mug press at the same time on a 15 amp circuit. It isn't going to happen.
Not going to happen.
And so it's very wise, as Jimmy said, to get an electrician in there and maybe install a 20 amp circuit for your business. That will run everything except, of course, 2 heat presses. But a very smart and intelligent thing to do is to get you some better power in there, so that you're not playing a dangerous game.
Yep. And, you know, a lot of times we're working in damp environments. You have to think about that too, and how that, you know, works in. Another handy device to have is a UPS, uninterruptible power supply. And this isn't for your heat press. This is really for your computer. You know, and a lot of us work off a laptop, which has a built-in battery, so if the power goes out, we don't lose anything. But if you're working off a desktop because you're looking for a system a little more powerful, you know, when the power goes out, what happens? So does the computer, and you can lose something that, especially with graphics you've been working on for a couple of hours. Plus, it's not healthy for the computer. So an uninterruptible power supply is sort of like a battery backup. It'll supply power for a short period of time, but it'll give you the chance to save your work if you're using a, you know, a large desktop type unit or mainframe, and then shut it down, you know, before it goes off on its own.
That UPS that you have there, Jimmy, that's a brand is called APC, an American Power Conversion, and that's the brand I like people to buy. That's a slightly bigger one. They have 2 sides, one that has a UPS side and one that's surge only.
Right.
And so I recommend you plug your sublimation printer into the battery side of it, your computer into the battery side, and then the other side you can use for non-UPS items. But when it comes to a heat press, or when it comes to like an oaky color laser printer, plug those folks directly into the wall. Do not even use a power strip, surge protector, anything like that, because those critters draw so much power. They just don't do well through a strip. And I know that's counterintuitive, but you know, the voltage drop in some of the outlets is enough to where the laser printer will not function.
Right. Yeah, you would have to have a mighty large UPS for one of those critters, and that would be a lot of money. I mean, you know, to be able to have one that big. So I know exactly where you're coming from with that. Other things to think about when we work from home, okay? And you know, all these things are like, I learned the hard way. Trust me on this stuff, okay? Sometimes when you work from home, you're just used to it being your environment. And for example, there's a lot of household odors that, and I don't mean that your house stinks. I'm just saying that there's, you know, let's see, maybe you cooked bacon for breakfast. You know, when people cook bacon, the whole neighborhood knows it, okay, because that's just one of those kind of foods that gives off that aroma. Now, what if you had a box of shirts, you know, near the kitchen and the door open and you're cooking bacon? Guess what those shirts are going to smell like? Bacon. And same thing with cigarette smoking. People that smoke cigarettes don't smoke in your work environment because it'll get onto your merchandise. And we even had a situation where our employees were not allowed to smoke in the building. They had to go outside. But we had a worker who came in, did not wash his hands after smoking, and was handling shirts. And a customer sent us back 144 shirts to tell us it smelled like a bar. And because he'd been handling the shirts, he'd left residue on them all. And so
that's painful.
Yeah, it was very painful. It became a new rule. Okay, not only can you not smoke in the building, you have to wash your hands thoroughly after anything and everything you do, because you can transfer it over. So sometimes we're just not aware of that, you know, and we just need to be, you know, pay close attention to that. Then we have our
And
small
I guess
visitors.
you really did mention things like mouse pads and how they
Oh,
stink
yeah, that's a good one.
so
Oh,
bad.
boy,
A
yeah.
lot of people, because some things like that, if you're going to do it regularly, then unfortunately you need to locate your heat press in your garage if you have
Yes.
one.
Yep, yeah, that's a great point because mouse pads, whew, I'll tell you, here at Sawgrass, if we're running some mouse pads for a show or something, the building evacuates. Everyone wants to know in advance. Okay, some of the other things in our household, we always have to be aware of small children, for example, our pets, because our pets don't necessarily understand sharp objects, and we do use sharp objects. We use heat presses, and certainly a child, same thing. So we do have to be careful that they cannot wander in there on their own and get injured. Now, you'll see some of the pictures of some of the Conde customer business operations where they do have the animals, and there's nothing wrong with having your pet in there. Just don't leave them in there unattended if you have any, concerns, because they could get hurt. It's
Yeah,
good to
and
have
also
a door.
what I tell people, Jimmy, also is when they close for the day, that instead of just turning off their heat press, they actually unplug it.
Yeah.
And that way, you know for a fact that that heat press is not on, because you could have a child walk in, touch a hot heat press,
Right.
and that, of course, would be really bad.
This is also a good case for having a separate area that has a door, because the idea is that you can close the door. And that does a lot for you, because not only are you keeping people out or small pets out, but you're also establishing psychologically to yourself that, okay, now it's family time, I'm done for the day. And that door becomes very important, trust me. Then we have to worry about climate control. Again, if we get into a spot like in our garage or in a basement where it's really damp, that's not a good work environment. Damp is not good for electronics, okay? When we start looking at sublimation systems, we have ideal operating ranges of temperature and humidity, and it pays to make sure that we're working within the tolerances or the recommendations for things like ink and printers as well. And you can find all that information. Here's some numbers right here that we typically post, but I recommend that with everything, not even just your sublimation printer, but any other kind of printer you have. It may take some while, but you can usually find what the ideal temperature range is and humidity. Everybody knows what a thermometer is. A hygrometer is what you use to measure humidity. And also, really, really damp is bad, but sometimes when things are really, really dry, it can be bad too. So the idea is to kind of figure out what's a good operating range, and can we control that climate?
And this goes back, Jimmy, to one of my tips. In fact, it's number one, and it is document your successes and failures. So if you're having problems on a particular day, you need to document it so we can figure out why. But environment does sometimes play a part. If you get too dry, the printer is going to have dropout. You may have static buildup on the paper, and it drags ink into places that it shouldn't.
Right.
So also paper may dry very slowly, and I tell everybody put their transfer paper under the heat press without closing it for a few seconds to dry it. Also, if you're going to use an oven or anything in your business, get you a temperature gauge to go inside of it as well.
This is what I was mentioning, a few minutes ago, but definitely the after hours concept of, I know as an entrepreneur, I mean, there are many times where we go put in a 16-hour day because that's what's needed. But the idea is that we don't do that every day, okay? And also to help kind of, let your customers know as a reminder. Now, a lot of times people are like, okay, I'm going to be open 9 to 5, but is that really the right time? I have some friends that when they started their decoration business, they ran it from 3 p.m. until 11 p.m. And that was their posted hours. And I said, well, that's a little different, especially working out of the house. They said, yeah, but we find that so many of our customers actually work 9 to 5 that when they're wanting to come and purchase something, we're closed. So we wanted to be open after hours so that people that do work day jobs can actually come to, our operation and make purchases and whatnot. So, you know what, worked out very well for them. So, it's your business. You can set your hours any way that you wish, but always have some downtime because you're going to need it. Okay, so if you're starting out, and a lot of times people just, I'll buy some equipment, put it in the house, and we'll just go for it. But, just because you're working at home doesn't mean you would do it any different. And my point being is that your home is a place where you're actually running your operation, but it shouldn't distinguish you from any other business model out there other than your location. You still need to deal with insurance and legal structures, business licensing and permitting. I mean, all those things still apply to you. Just because you're at home doesn't mean that they don't. So you do need to be aware of those types of things and find out what, the business requirements are in your area. Different states, different municipalities have different rules. And it would be wise to learn a little bit as you go. For example, insurance. Your homeowner's insurance isn't designed to cover a business. And so typically homeowners doesn't cover business. Therefore, if you want your equipment, and think about the investment you made in your equipment, if you want your investment to be covered, then you really need to sit down with your insurance agent and say, hey, listen, I'm running a business from home, and talk to them about that. It doesn't have to be really expensive, but you want to make sure it's covered in case something happens, such as a fire. In my case, I live in hurricane territory, and you do too, David. And floods are a big problem with hurricanes. And your flood insurance will be needed, whether you're in a flood zone or not. These days, we're finding so many places that weren't flood zones that get flooded. But don't think that your homeowners, even with an addition for business equipment, will help you on a flood. So you need to look into that as well. And then I tell everybody, listen, it's not just what you bought from Conde, okay, your sublimation equipment. Did you go out and invest money in clip art and stock images? Did you go out and invest money in other pieces of support equipment, maybe other computers, business software? There's a lot of money tied up in your business, and you want to make sure all that's covered under your insurance too, instead of just your equipment. So these are things we have to think about. As your business gets bigger, you probably wouldn't do this when you're small, but as your business get bigger, we actually invested in what's called business interruption insurance. And if our business was knocked offline for 6 months because of a hurricane or whatnot, it essentially was giving us a paycheck or a way to live while we got the business back up and running again. It's got a price tag to have that kind of insurance, but when your business becomes a full-time operation, your sole source of income, you definitely want to take a look at that, because you can get hurt really bad when suddenly everything goes wrong and you're down for a couple of months due to Mother Nature or whatnot. One other thing on insurance is if you do mobile operations where you take your equipment and go somewhere else, your business equipment policy typically doesn't cover that without you notifying your agent for them to write a separate rider that attaches to it to cover it. So that was a whole mouthful, but you definitely need insurance.
Yeah, the main thing is have that relationship with your agent where you can understand where your strengths and weaknesses. But every year we have, unfortunately, too many home businesses that call us, and they've either had a fire, they've had flooding, but some unfortunate incident in their business, and usually they're really not covered because of either their deductible or they just don't have any coverage.
Right. Yeah, a lot of home businesses look for ways to save money, like, oh, well, we're okay with insurance. So the next thing too, you're at home, but that doesn't separate you out from the need to do accounting and manage your taxes and liability. And I'm not going to give you any advice on how to set up your business structure. That's really between you and typically an accountant is who you usually talk to about these things. Most people start as a sole proprietorship or an LLC, You may incorporate later. There's different types of corporations. Again, I'm not going to go through all that here, but, really from the very beginning, you should talk to a qualified accountant. You want to start thinking about how you set the business up as a legal structure for multiple reasons. But one of them is for taxes. And yeah, you may not be, well, everybody's thinking about taxes right now, but other than the month of April, a lot of times people don't think about taxes. You want to think about that from day one, because you want to make sure that you're taking care of business the right way. So when it is tax time comes along, that you're able to be in the best position that you can be. So take the time out to go figure out which of these types of operations works best for you. You can always change it later as your business changes. But from day one, get your legal structure set up, your accounting concepts set up, and then work towards that and keep up with it. Business licenses and permitting. This is where we get some catch-22s, by the way. A lot of times home businesses by zoning aren't allowed in a certain area. Therefore, people avoid, the business licenses and permitting. I understand that, so I'm not going to give you advice on if you're one of those folks. Interesting, where we started, home businesses weren't allowed, but since it was a very, very small town, everybody on the city council had a home business, so nobody actually enforced it unless somebody complained. And it was funny because people could go to town hall and ask where we were, and they would tell them. And it's like, hey, you're giving people directions to an illegal business, right? But, the other thing is they made sure that we had purchased, keyword there, all the right permits and everything locally, even though we weren't allowed to have a business in the house. I mean, so it's kind of crazy that way, right? You'll have to kind of see what goes on with that. But for sure, depending on your states are different, but you're most likely going to need a sales tax license, and businesses like Conde may have that requirement of you as well. Depending on the city and county, you may need a business license. So it's pays to look into this. Let me tell you who can tell you all the answers. Again, that same accountant who's helping you set your business up, they typically can tell you everything you need to know about getting things set up the right way.
Yeah, and Conde does not require a sales tax certificate, business license, or anything like that. I do know of many of the other folks in the industry that do.
Yep.
We try to help, the person who is just starting off, minimal red tape, but ultimately once you get rolling, then you're really at risk of getting in a little bit of hot water if you're not collecting sales tax, because if another business or a competitor sees that you're not doing it, then there may be just one quick phone call to the license commissioner, and then you'll have to sort of backtrack, and that can be painful.
Yeah, that can be real painful. So, there are two sides of that sales tax. One is some businesses, David mentioned, you would have to have a sales tax license to purchase items from them. But in the same case for you, your customers, if it depends on your state, okay, but if your customer is buying and they want to buy it without paying sales tax, then they have to have a sales tax license of their own, which you're technically supposed to make a copy of for your own records if you ever get into one of those audits. So the main thing is find out what the rules are and follow the rules. It's not fun being audited. Been there, done that. Okay, so another area I like to talk about is cash flow, because a lot of times the home-based businesses, they tend to be, they're starting out smaller, and they don't always think about big terms like cash flow. Isn't that for big corporations? But I'm going to give you an example here, because I want you to understand how it works. Because when you're running from home, you'll sometimes have people trying to take advantage of you. They'll feel like maybe you're a little more desperate for business, or you're not as in tune to business or something, okay? And that doesn't mean that's true. That's just what some people think. So let me show you what cash flow can do for you, or hurt you, should I say. And cash flow is, the key here is that you're always bringing in more money than you're spending. Because if more money's coming in than going out, that means you can always pay your bills. But if it turns around the other way, that's when you get into trouble. And in fact, more companies fail because of negative cash flow than probably just about anything else, meaning that they don't have enough money coming in fast enough to take care of their business. And even worse, you may be actually making the money on paper, but if you don't have it in your hand, it's not doing you any good. So the best way is, I just want to give you a scenario, okay? Nice, round, simple numbers. But this is something we run into a lot when we first get into business, and even when you've been in business for years, okay? Let's say on day one you take an order for 100 Poly-Performance t-shirts. Nice order, by the way. And let's just say, for easy math, that your wholesale cost is $5 per shirt, or $500 plus shipping. So you call up whomever, and I didn't say Conde, David, in case this comes out sounding negative. I don't want to come back on you. But anyway, hopefully you called up Conde, because they can help you out with that order, and you place the order using a credit card, okay? We do that all the time. And 4 days later, the shirts arrive, and you process the order, meaning you put the images on, and then you call the customer. 2 days after that, the customer picks up the shirts and promises to send a check. Uh-oh. So they're going to leave with the merchandise, but they didn't give you any money. You're small, you're new, maybe you feel a little nervous. 30 days later, the check finally arrives after numerous phone calls. Been there, done that. Way too much. So what happened here was, if you look through the whole cycle, this one order tied up $500 plus shipping of your money for over 30 days. So for 30 days, this one order was in someone else's pocket as far as your money. In other words, you became a bank. You're actually financing the order, because the fact is you paid for everything, and then you're waiting for them to pay you. Now it gets worse. So let's look here. Just for fun, let's say you took 2 orders every day with an average wholesale cost of $500. Nice numbers, but that's easy math. Anyway, so if that was the case and you're using a credit card, you ended up putting $5,000 on a credit card in just 1 week without any money coming in from those customers to cover it. And then if they're delaying paying you, you could have $20,000 on there by the end of the month, and you still don't have any money in your hands. You see where I'm going with this? And this is where we run into, yeah, we're making good money. It's just it's not in our hands or our bank. And I'm going somewhere with this, okay? Because I want you, as a home-based business or a storefront business or anything else, I want you to be aware of this. I know I was at a point where we were owed $40,000 plus on any given day of the week. And when we're talking about a small operation with, 4 employees and 2 owners, that's a lot of money, okay? So people start looking around, and this might be the wrong ideas here. I'm taking you somewhere. A lot of times people are like, okay, I need more capital. I need another way to make more purchases. I'll get more credit cards. I'll get bigger limits on credit cards. I'll get credit with suppliers, which we don't see a lot of that anymore. At one time, we might have seen that. Some people run to the bank for a line of credit, but all you're doing is just you're not helping it, okay? Here's how you fix it, okay? As I say, break the cycle. I don't care how small you are, how small your house operation is, you need to require a deposit from your customers, okay? Because if your customer is giving you a deposit, that means that when you do call Conde and place the order, put it on a credit card, you can immediately pay the credit card right back off because you've gotten a deposit. So then when the customers, and this is something else you're going to run into, people will start saying things like, do you have terms? If they ask if you have terms, they're talking about payment terms, 30-day, 60-day, 90-day. Nope. My answer to that is, do you have a credit card? And if they say yes, I said, fine, then you have terms with your credit card company, not me. So this is very, very important for all of you out there, is you need to stand your ground, and you need to have payment policies. And always remember, once the merchandise leaves your hands and your customer's hands, you lost your bargaining chip, because it's now in their hands. And this kind of stuff will get you into trouble. So you want to be focused on this from day one. Make yourself a nice big sublimated sign that explains it. David, your thought on all that? That was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, number one is get some software. Like a lot of people love QuickBooks.
Yes.
To manage everything, and QuickBooks gives you a lot of intuitive information. It allows you to send invoices to clients where they can pay it. So very important to manage that. And I think if you start getting your act together, it allows you to extend your business from the house, say go mobile. You know, if you can take credit cards, a little small heat press, small printer like the SG400, and gosh, I got to tell you, having a mobile business takes guts, but it will make you a ton of money for the right businesses. So from a management point of view, you've got to manage your inventory, having your software help you with it. You've got to understand when you need to reorder stuff. And the only thing I take issue with, Jimmy, is I think you just about gave the darn shirts away. A shirt for $5.
No. That was that was the wholesale cost. That wasn't the selling cost. No, that was just what came out of my money, my hand to you to get the shirts.
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
we wouldn't
now
sell them for that. Yeah. I was just talking about pure money out of our pocket, you know.
And so but managing your inventory, a lot of people, I think, will not take advantage of having some software that tells them, well, this client always orders X number, but yet every time they order products from us, they're really not ordering enough to really fill their orders. So they're constantly having to reorder, where with just a little bit better forecasting, they could order what they need to, say, survive the week or the 2 weeks or whatever. But I think software like QuickBooks is a big thing. Also, you need to be able to set up your accounts with, say, the USPS through Indicia or whoever service you want to. I think that's important so that you can manage your money there.
Yes. Well,
there we go.
There we go. We're going to go take a look at some of the real-life operations out there. And these are customers of Conde who've sent in pictures kind of showing off, and I have their name on each screen. So it's very interesting to see how some people have laid out their home operations. And the one thing that I noticed as I went through all these images is there's some really nice professional setups, and I think that's important. I mean, yeah, even if you're just working alone at home most of the time, having a good environment that's easy to reach everything and it's professional, you feel good. You feel energized when you're working. So
well, thank you, Amanda Rogers, for submitting these. And having shelves where you put the printer on makes a lot of sense. A good space on a work table for prepping the products to put into your heat press, and of course space to take them off so you can put more product in there.
Right.
So
notice the pull-out drawers underneath the shelf.
Ooh,
those are like
I love those.
Drawers.
I love those.
And
I would recommend the label maker to label them so you know what's in the drawer.
Yep. This is Barbie Arriola, and she sent in 2 photos there. And again, they're just nice and neat. I like good, nice, neat operational workspaces. It makes it easier to find everything and be more efficient.
Got her there. Looks like an SG800 and DK20S, maybe a hat press in the middle there.
Yep.
Got some space. I would prefer, as much as possible, a big work table sort of in the center of the room.
Right.
Some products require some assembly. You want to sort through things. Also, lighting. Buy the darn full spectrum light bulbs. That's probably one of the best tips I can tell people. They have these strange lights in a lot of homes where you really can't judge colors.
That's true.
So we started installing them here, and they make a tremendous difference on seeing colors.
Yep. Now Betty just sent in one picture, but you can see she's got her printer there right next to the heat press. And it looks like an adding machine there. I like that. That's like, keep the numbers rolling. And you see
got a lint roller.
Yep.
And, you want to have, all your accessories where you store them properly so that they'll have a long life. I would also tell you to get one of the little U-line little paper holders, and you can either put it on a table or mount it on the wall, and you tear off exactly what you need with a nice clean cut.
This is Krysta Hartman, and she, because I see a lot of cones of thread there, so I was looking to see if there was an embroidery machine in the picture, but it may be in a different corner. But yeah, she's got containers there. She's got a convection oven there.
Cool, and that looks like either Wolfgang Puck pressure oven or maybe a Cuisinart brick oven. Our favorites. Can't tell if it's a 400 800. Sort of looks like a 400.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice environment. Got the little drawers underneath. I like those kind of chairs. And
you know what's really
excellent.
What I like too is, well, I actually try to stay on my feet all day, but still, when you're working and you have a chair on wheels and you can easily move it, that means that, because notice where the chair is, it's a hard floor. It's not carpet, which I expect that's probably she's doing a lot of work between the different devices there. And, in the chair, you can kind of like push yourself real fast from one edge to the next and maybe get a little more efficiency out of it. Let's see. This is Connie. Now, Connie's got 3 pictures, and the bottom one's my favorite one for sure, because we're talking about our little friends coming in to check us out. And there we have the cat climbed into the box on top of an 800 with a bypass tray.
Oh, that is unbelievable. I love that photograph,
Yep.
So,
let's see. Hey, see, now here's a different one with a cat as well. And so, yeah, we got a couple of different mug presses going over there.
Yeah, it's a DK3, I see. All those are DK3s, it looks like. Notice the DK20S over here has a stand.
Right.
I love the stand.
I do
It gives
too.
you flexibility to clean around it, to roll it around it.
And honestly, that folding table there would not hold a DK20 that well because of the weight. A lot of the folding tables are not good if you're constantly pressing. So that stand is much better way to go, in my opinion.
Cool.
I like this one, just a statement. Sublimation first and the drywall. So that's a work in progress. And, he's got everything in place there. And obviously in the background, they're building the walls. So we need to see what the future shot looks like of the finished.
Yeah, I would say that yeah, it's nice to have a nicer setup. It's nice to have another darn cat. Wow.
Yes, cats and sublimation.
Wow. It's nice to have a setup, but please, you don't have to have a nice setup. It certainly is nice. It's helpful. It makes you feel better. But my flea market days, all I had was a folding table and some Tupperware containers, and sometimes simple is best.
Yes. So here we have the printer kind of stuck in underneath. I see an embroidery machine in the corner. I see the heat press on a table that looks like it has a scissors lift so that you could put it at different heights and roll it around.
Cool. Man, we got some great photographs.
Yeah, now look at this one. Look at the toolboxes. Yeah, and there go the toolboxes. I love the mechanics toolboxes.
Got some dogs for a change here.
Yep.
And the dogs obviously stand guard over all the equipment, right?
I think they do, or else they keep the cats out. I don't know which.
Got 2 beds over there. Got the roll of paper, desk. Just a simple setup.
Yep. And here's a neat, the wide angle photo where you get the whole, look there. And we got the convection oven. And now that one's a small, what's that? That one's a DK. That's
a DC16.
Okay. Yeah.
Digital combo,
yeah,
16, 14 by 16, swing away. Nice press.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
And
quite interesting.
Yep, there we got a Vijay.
Got a Vijay 628. Obviously, that's going to be hooked up Ethernet.
Yep.
And
That's what I've been
And,
working on all week is a VJ.
Yep. And so these folks got projects in process here.
Yes.
Looks like a Stahl's Hottronics press over there, also
Yep.
good press.
Looks kind of like a Graphtec cutter.
Yeah, it does. It does. So, you see tape, you see scissors. There's some kind of in the foreground there, it looks like some sort of printer, but I can't, maybe a color laser printer.
Yeah, I think that might be it.
Nice.
Yep. Got another dog.
And that press looks like a Hicks press to me. And can't tell the other stuff. See a can of Pro Spray there.
Right.
And got there, it looks like a 400. Nice setup.
Yeah. So
well, those are fantastic pictures. Wow,
great.
what an unexpected treat from our Conde community to send those to us. So thank you out there for doing that. We ought to probably just post those separately. So Bobby, if you're listening, let's post them separately so folks can see them that don't watch the webinar all the way into this where it is. But I had a couple of comments about it. You see, I prefer when you're storing paper, things like that, airtight containers.
Right.
So for your transfer papers, things that ultimately can absorb moisture, get you some airtight containers certainly helps. And then, if you've got an oven, you need your working room because, you got stuff that's in the oven, you got stuff that's going in the oven, got stuff that's coming out of the oven. So make sure you've got adequate, space to manage that.
Right.
Ovens, as we know, or maybe you don't know because it's sort of a new thing here. For us, we will be launching a tremendous amount of oven-only products. So the small countertop convection ovens, I think, are just part of the game now. Also, cool plate. In fact, I want to give a cool plate away to somebody on the broadcast here today, and so I'll let you pick somebody out in just a little bit. Cool plate, I think, is an amazing accessory when you're taking stuff out of your oven, you're taking stuff out of your heat press. You can put it on your cool plate, and it's a heat sink source. Cools things very quickly. For mugs, I recommend putting them on a cool plate but running them across a powerful fan. I no longer recommend dunking mugs in water as some people use too cool of water and they would potentially have microfractures. The other thing that's in these setups, and that is to a very large extent, it is so easy to put in some ventilation into your attic. And I would tell you that often that's the right thing to do, especially near your heat press, because you want to make everybody at home, and as Jerry make everybody at home happy. As Jimmy pointed out, some people can be sensitive to fumes, just like some people are allergic to peanuts. And so putting a ventilation fan that, say, exhausts to your attic is just so easy to do, and recommend that you do that.
Yep. Okay, a couple of my quick keys to success, and there's so many different things, but just some of the things I've learned, because when I started out, I was like a lot of people, I was selling it too cheap and not really focusing on what things really are worth. So this is my main list here, and the number one reason for lost customers is poor quality. It really is poor quality, poor service, number one reason to lose customers. Cheap prices rarely produce loyal customers, because those that are looking for it cheap, they came to you looking for it cheap, they leave you just as fast looking for a cheap price. You build customer loyalty because you deliver good quality and exceptional service time and time again. The most successful companies are rarely the cheapest, And my major rule, this is my toughest, biggest rule of all, is someone else will always do it cheaper. If I was to give it to you for free, someone would pay you to take it. It never ends. So, you know what? Focus on service and quality, not price.
Yeah, very good things, and always add a little bit of buffer in your commitment dates of when you're going to deliver, because yes. Jimmy, do you know we have a mutual acquaintance, I think. I don't know if he lives closer to you or me, but I think his name is Mr. Murphy.
Okay. I think he lives in my house.
Yes.
You know, around where I live, we also call it Lamb's Law, just saying. Couple other things, too, I just want to share. Don't put all your eggs in one basket as you're growing that business. No one customer should comprise more than 25% of your sales. And the reason I say that is if one customer becomes too big a portion of all your sales and you lose that customer, I mean, it really can just decimate your business. So nothing wrong with having big accounts. Don't misunderstand that. But you want to always be diversifying and finding a healthy mix of clients. Be careful, because I've seen people where over 50% of their business is one account, and then that account leaves them and their business falls apart. So be careful of that. I also tell people to develop a capital reserve. When you start making money, put some in the bank. Don't buy a new car, because sales always seem to be cyclic. You have really good seasons, and you know, then all of a sudden it slows down, picks up, slows down. So I learned to start putting money away, which would cushion me in those slower periods, and I just find that to be very useful. Okay, so that brings us down
I had just a couple of
well, that's okay, because I'm going
comments.
to turn it over to you.
And number one is, regardless of what you think your business is doing, I recommend that you create what I call a wholesale fulfillment component of your business. And three good examples, well, I'll give you two examples and then another one. And that is that everybody, I think, ought to have developed a relationship with a local pet groomer where you put samples into the pet groomer and people come in and buy the product, and you do the fulfillment, cut the pet groomer a little bit for the profit. And fantastic business model, and you're just in the fulfillment business. Number two is tap into every fundraising organization that's anywhere near you. Find out their schedule, the calendar, find out the contact information, who the decision maker is, make samples, and you will do exceptionally well, because nobody wants the traditional fundraising gifts like more chocolate, wrapping paper. And then number three is everybody should be selling name badges. Name badges, to me, are my favorite product, and I've done a ton of videos. I'll give you a PhD in name badge philosophy, but the bottom line is many businesses don't have a quality name badge if they have one at all, and you go in and sell them a $15 name badge with a magnetic finding, and guess what? You only have to sell it once, and you just take reorders. And if you sublimate your information on the back, guess what? Reorders are going to be faster, and when that person changes jobs, goes to another company, they know exactly who did the name badge, and they can refer business. So those are three things that I think everybody ought to do. The other thing I think everybody ought to do is walk out their front door. In many businesses, I'll pick on the trophy business, Jimmy, for a second. Okay. They only go out their back door. They go in their back door, they leave out their back door. For whatever reason, they've lost sight of the age-old practice of making a sales call. So that's a great way to grow your business. You make up a personalized product for a business. It could be a name badge, as a matter of fact, and you deliver it in person, and people actually will buy it. It's a fantastic opportunity to make products. It could be a coffee mug for a gift shop to get the business there. I mean, many gift shops would greatly benefit from what you're doing, because you get to have the concept of virtual inventory. meaning your products are blank until people say what they want. And so it could be that gift shop that says, I need 10 mugs with this design. I'm going to need 15. Well, those gift shops, you've given them the words that they love to hear, that they can order whatever they need, no more, no less. And there's always more where that came from, instead of being forced to buy, say, 12 dozen of something and buy products that, frankly, they don't know if they'll sell. And so you are in the driver's seat with helping these businesses solve their biggest problem, and that is what's going to sell and what's, managing their inventory. Trying to think of what else. Had a couple other things here. We have a pricing cost spreadsheet that Jimmy had a lot to do with in its early days, and now we've continued to add to it, and it gives you some guidance as to how to price your products. It gives you some ranges. And then there's a spreadsheet that helps you, if you don't want software like QuickBooks, it helps you with just understanding, what your costs are. And in Jimmy and I's webinar, we preach, how much is it costing you per hour to sort of run your business. And I think that's a great motivation. Don't you think it's a great motivation to know a little bit what your costs are, Jimmy?
It's a huge motivation.
So
it makes a big difference.
You're rolling up all your costs. Well, Jimmy, what questions do we have?
Well, we got quite a few. The first one, it wasn't a question, but I liked it. It says, sublimating from home on the island of Barbados. And I've been to Barbados and liked it very much. So thanks, Dean, for tuning in.
I wonder if I know Dean. If I don't, Dean, thank you for being with us, and thank you for the comment.
What sort of insurance would one need? I don't have customers come to my home at all. The insurance that we're talking about is insuring your equipment, your supplies, the different things that if you bought something for your business, that means you've invested in it, and if a fire or bad weather or something destroys your business, then you're out that. And that's what we're talking about with insurance.
Jimmy, what they generally call it in insurance terms is it's a rider on your existing policy. Most companies will have some sort of small business rider. And by the way, they're not really too many what I would call great tax advantages. But bottom line is, if you're running it like a business, then you'll get to deduct your expenses. So ultimately, you're only going to pay taxes on, quote, your profits.
Yep. Let's see. Where can I purchase a cool plate, and how much do they cost?
You can purchase it from Conde. It's spelled Kool, and you can do a search on our website. I don't remember how much it costs. That's an embarrassing comment. But since I'm looking at the screen, I don't want to go to our website while I'm looking at Jimmy's presentation. But they're not too expensive. I think they're in the $200, $300 range, but maybe $250 or $270, something like that. But I can tell you, we have really experienced sublimators around here. I've been sublimating for 27 years, and we all use our cool plates. We have one located strategically in areas that have a heat press. And time is money, and we cool stuff because often you're going to need to put it back in the press if it's double-sided, things like that.
What is a good countertop oven to get for sublimation?
So I think it's a moving target. So my favorite of all time was the Cuisinart brick oven, but I believe they stopped making it, but Cuisinart may make a good convection oven. The one we use today in our videos, things like that, is a Wolfgang Puck pressure oven. And somebody showed me a picture of one the other day, and it looked like they may now produce a small one and a little bit larger one. But it seems to work great for our purposes. Take it. But it needs to be a convection style oven. Convection meaning it circulates heat, Heat is transferred by convection, conduction, and radiation.
Okay. We had one person commented when you were talking about the dog groomers that's exactly, oh, here it is. I've been sublimating webbing and making collars and leashes that I'm selling in grooming shops. So that was just a comment. But someone else was asking the question that maybe I just answered, and that is, what products would you recommend putting in the groomer shop?
So it's sort of a weird answer, but I would first start off with products that are for humans, not the pets. Because a human comes in, they're taking their dog there because they love their dog, and they're looking often for a keepsake from a pet that's passed on. And so it could be a phone stand, it could be some coasters, just a large number. So look over the catalog. Could be a stacked metal print, something high end. So I always like to adopt the philosophy good, better, best, and so you've got a very low cost kind of product to get them in the door. And I think it also depends on if you're selling to a lady or a man. For instance, in my car, I've got our sandstone car coaster with one of our dogs on there. I love our sandstone car coasters. They are just so great, sell very well. We've got a brand new puppy. It's a half St. Bernard, half Newfoundland.
Wow.
And it's going to be a gentle giant, and then we've got a golden retriever. My dad was a veterinarian. Again, it's one of those kinds of things. If you show some products to a pet lover, they're going to tell you. But, it could be drinkware. A dog on, man's best friend, lady's best friend. Be creative with portraying that. If you look at the slides there, we had a lot of cats on there, but
I sure did.
We don't take cats too often to a pet groomer.
Well, David, there's actually a lot of great questions, but I think that, we need to kind of move on here. And I would suggest anyone whose questions we didn't get to give your Conde rep a call, because I will say Conde is a wealth of information, and the things that come in on the questions here, pretty much all of them can be answered by the great staff there at Conde. So definitely feel free to contact them. That's what they're there for.
Okay, I need to give away the cool plate.
Yes, you do. You need to give away.
You need to pick one of the, and we've got, gosh, a huge number of attendees today.
We do. So what I do is I close my eyes, I put up a list, and I just stick my finger on it. So I don't want anybody to think it's fixed. It's not. It's just me, just like I said.
All right.
So
let's go for it.
Here we go, and let me just make this. Let me get it all full screen here real quick so I can.
So the call for action, I'd like everybody is be sure to take advantage of our pricing cost spreadsheet. Just ask your Conde rep to email this to you. And Jimmy, who's going to win the cool plate?
Okay, the first one is Evelyn Hay Primus, Primus. Evelyn Hay Primus. I may have said it wrong.
Can you email that to me, Jimmy?
I will email that to you. Yes.
Make sure I get it exactly right. So Evelyn, if you're still on the broadcast with us, congratulations for winning the cool plate. Jimmy, I'm in a good mood. I want to give away one more prize.
Okay, one more prize.
It feels like a Friday. I want to give away, I believe it's a boxed Corel Draw X7 graphic suite. It's
very nice.
And X7 was good. So who gets that?
I'm closing my eyes and sticking my finger on the screen and opening up, and it's Terry Greer. Terry Greer. Terry Greer. I'll send you both.
So, Terry, I hope you need that X7. If not, maybe we can figure out something else. So Terry and Evelyn, congratulations. Jimmy, as always, thank you for being with us, and look forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Had a great time. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.